It is now 5 o'clock, April the 3rd, 2018, and I call to order the meeting of the City Council of the City of Victorville. And the City Council sitting is the Library Board of Trustees, Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, successor agency to the Victorville Redevelopment Agency, the Victorville Joint Powers Financing Authority, the Victorville Water District, and the city is Housing Assets successor. May we have roll call, please?
Mr. Cox? Ms. Gomez?
Present.
Mr. Kennedy? Mr. Negretti? Mayor Garcia?
Here.
Mr. Negretti absent.
This is the time and place for the general public to address the City Council on any item listed or not listed on the agenda per Government Code Section 549-54.3. State law prohibits the council from addressing any issue not previously included on the agenda. The council may receive testimony and set the matter to a subsequent meeting. There is no one in the audience that would like to address the council. Therefore, may we have a declaration of closed session items by our city attorney, please?
Thank you, Mayor Garcia. We have several items this evening, several of which are related. Item A on behalf of the City Council is anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9 D2, and the facts and circumstances are set forth pursuant to Government Code 54956.9 E3. Items B and C on behalf of the City Council are related to items F, G, H, and I on behalf of the Airport Authority. These are all pending litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9 D1, and the case names and case numbers are all set forth on the agenda. Item D on behalf of the City Council is related to item J on behalf of the Airport Authority. Again, existing litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9 D1, and again, the case names and case numbers are set forth on the agenda. Lastly, item E is public employee performance evaluation pursuant to Government Code Section 54957B, and the position is interim city manager. To the extent there's reportable action, we will report it either at the conclusion of the closed session or at the commencement of the 6 o'clock regular session.
Thank you. We will now recess to our closed session meeting, and our regular session convenes at 6 p.m. April 3rd. And I call to order the meeting of the City Council of the City of Victorville. And the City Council sitting is the Library Board of Trustees, Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, successor agency to the Victorville Redevelopment Agency, the Victorville Joint Powers Financing Authority, the Victorville Water District, and the city is Housing Assets successor. May we have roll call, please?
Mr. Cox? Here. Gomez?
Here. Sorry. Good evening, everyone.
Mr. Kennedy?
Here.
Mr. Negretti? Mayor Garcia?
Here.
Mr. Negretti absent.
May we have closed session announcements by our city attorney, please?
Thank you, Mayor Garcia. We had several items this evening on closed session. Item A on behalf of the City Council was anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9 D2, and pursuant to Government Code 54956.9 E3, the facts and circumstances related to that litigation are set forth on the agenda. Item B and C on behalf of the City Council is related to items F, G, H, and I on behalf of the Airport Authority. That is pending litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9 D1, and the case names and case numbers are all fully set forth on the agenda. Item D is also existing litigation on behalf of the City Council, and it is related to item J on behalf of the Airport Authority. Again, existing litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9 D1, and again, the case names and case numbers are on the agenda. And lastly, item E was public employee performance evaluation pursuant to Government Code 54957B, and the position title was interim city manager. At this time, there is no reportable action with respect to any of those items.
Thank you. We will have the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. The invocation will be delivered by Reverend Jude, I can't pronounce your last name, from St. Joan of Arc Catholic Church. And the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Police Chief Rick Bassinger. So please stand.
Good evening to all of you. In God we trust, therefore let us pray together. God of justice and mercy, first and foremost, let me say thank you on behalf of all who are gathered here today. Thank you for your many and abundant blessings upon each and every one of us gathered here. For the measure of health, thank you for the gift of life and the opportunity to serve the people of our city of Victorville. Help us to act with character and conviction. Help us to listen with understanding and goodwill. Help us to speak with charity and restraint. Give us a spirit of service. Remind us that we are stewards of your authority. Guide us to be the leaders of your people need. Help us to see the humanity and dignity of our city, and to treat all persons, no matter how weak or poor, with the reverence your creation deserves. And finally, loving God, renew us with the strength of your presence throughout this meeting and the joy of helping to build a community worthy of human person. We ask this as your sons and daughters, confident in your goodness and love. God bless you all. Amen.
This evening we have the introduction of new police chief by Deputy Chief Sam Lucia. So there they are. Glad to see you again.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council, City Manager. How are you? First of all, my name is Sam Lucci. I'm the Deputy Chief assigned to the Desert Patrol Bureau. So I am responsible for the 7 desert stations from Oak Hills out to the state line. I'm here tonight, and I'm actually very honored to be back here. As you know, I was your police chief about 1.5 years ago and enjoyed it for 4 long years and love this city. It's home. And I'm here introducing tonight Captain Rick Bassinger on behalf of Sheriff McMahon, who believes that it's very important for you to have somebody here who's connected to the community and has a little stake in it. I'll let him tell you all about himself, but he's a 20-plus year veteran of the department. He worked at Victorville Station years ago as a sergeant. He's a resident of the Victor Valley, so with no more to add, I'm going to turn it over to Rick Bassinger.
Council, I'm excited to be assigned back in the high desert at the Victorville Station. I think I've been assigned to many stations throughout my career, and you always have the one station that feels like home the most, and you always wish you could come back to, because sometimes we don't get lucky enough to come back to specific places. And I feel very blessed to have been a sergeant at Victorville City, and now to come back as the captain. I really have no words, so I just look forward to working with you, and just hopefully I can get 4 years into it just like the deputy chief did. So thank you.
Welcome. Okay, now we have a presentation of thanks to City Council by Regina Witherspoon Bell, Dreamers, Visionaries, and Leaders. Ms. Regina.
Good evening. And I think they have a video that's queued up that they're going to show you.
The Dreamers, Visionaries, and Leaders Project wants to thank you for your partnership. Happy 10th anniversary, DBL. The Dreamers, Visionaries, and Leaders Project wants to thank you for your partnership and sponsor support over the past 10 years. Your support has enabled us to honor 178 local high desert citizens for their accomplishments and community service. You've also helped us to provide 25 local high desert students with scholarships totaling over $15,000 since 2014. Thank you as we continue to grow and move forward, serving our high desert community and its dreamers, visionaries, and leaders. I'll never let it take away my dream.
So, on behalf of the Dreamers, Visionaries, and Leaders, first of all, I want to thank you, Mayor and council members, for your support over the past 10 years. It is really awesome for us to realize that we have been in existence for 10 years. During that time, we have recognized over 178 individuals, citizens in our community, for their professional accomplishments as well as their community service. And since 2014, we have provided over 25 scholarships to local high desert students. We have our first set of students. There's a total of 6 students that will be graduating college this year that receive DVL scholarships. So we're excited about our growth and our expansion, and a lot of that has to do with you. Every year for the past 6 years, you have provided an opportunity during Black History Month and also during Hispanic Heritage Month for us to have our Know Your History display here in City Hall. And that has been of great support. We've had great responses from the community for that information, which highlights our citizens here and the contributions that they've made to our community. So tonight, I came out to say a special thank you, not just for what you do annually, but what you've done collectively in support of the Dreamers, Visionaries, and Leaders Project over the past 10 years. And I have a special presentation, so I was told that it would be okay if you guys came down so we could take a photo together, and I'll make this presentation to you. Yes, absolutely. All of you, absolutely. I'm going to read this special award, and then I'll come and we'll have a great photo opportunity, right? This is presented to the City of Victorville as we celebrate 10 years of the Dreamers, Visionaries, and Leaders Project serving the high desert community. We recognize and honor your partnership support with sincere appreciation and gratitude for helping us to build a legacy. And this is from the Dreamers, Visionaries, and Leaders Project. Thank you.
And now we have a presentation of a proclamation for the 2018 National Sexual Assault Awareness Month to Andrietta Charbonnet and Cassandra Black, San Bernardino Sexual Assault Services. And I will come down and do the presentation. So if you will join me. Okay, on behalf of the Victorville City Council, I would like to present you with this proclamation declaring April 2018 a Sexual Assault Awareness Month in the city of Victorville, and to recognize your organization for increasing community awareness, empowerment, and prevention. And thank you for your contributions and accomplishments. And I have your proclamation for you. And again, thank you so very much for everything that you do and for what you represent. Okay, we will continue on. May we have our city clerk present the agenda to council and revisions to the agenda, please?
The City Council of the City of Victorville welcomes the public's participation in tonight's meeting. Persons who wish to address the council on a specific item or any item that does not appear on the agenda are requested to complete one of the white speaker cards located in the council chambers lobby and give it to the city clerk prior to the meeting. The mayor will call upon each individual who has submitted a speaker card. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.3, state law prohibits the council from addressing any issue not previously included on the agenda. The council may receive testimony and set the matter to a subsequent meeting. Comments made during the public hearings, written communications, or public comment sections of the agenda are to be limited to 3 minutes per speaker or less, as deemed necessary by the mayor. Communications are to be addressed directly to the City Council. Individual comments to staff or members of the audience are not permitted. Any person or group who interferes with the conduct of a City Council meeting by willfully interrupting and/or disrupting the meeting is subject to removal. A peace officer may be requested to assist with the removal should any person or group fail to comply with an order of removal by the Council. Any person or group who resists removal by a peace officer is subject to arrest and prosecution pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957.9, Penal Code Section 403. Thank you for your cooperation. All documents to be considered for approval at this meeting are before the council. following are three revisions that have been submitted for tonight's agenda. Revision to item number D2, it's a memo from interim city manager, additional information. Revision to item D1, memo from interim city manager, additional information. And revision to item number D7, Mayor Garcia and Councilmember Kennedy have requested a continuance of this item to the May 1st, 2018 regular city council meeting. Those are all the revisions I have.
Thank you. This evening, we do not have any appeal hearings, and we also do not have any public hearings. Therefore, we will move on to consent calendar. Consent calendar items C1 through C5 can be approved with one motion unless there is an item that needs to be pulled for discussion.
Well, I have comments on C1 and C2, not necessarily questions.
Go ahead.
So for item C1, CHAS is a mortgage assistance program for homeowners to try to achieve ownership and affordability. This consent item is being accepted for a repayment of a loan that took place back in 2009. This family took the opportunity to apply and received a loan from CHAS, and now a few years later, we see that the loan is being paid off. If anyone is interested in mortgage assistance programs for homeowners, you can feel free to speak to the city, or I can probably bridge that communication gap. The second one was just item C2. Another consent item is MAP. If you're looking to purchase a home in the city of Victorville, you may inquire about applying for MAP, which is an acronym that stands for Mortgage Assistance Program. I'd like to share with you a few highlights from the program that helped this applicant on the consent calendar who purchased a home through this program. To qualify, just like Victorville resident did, you must be a first-time home buyer. Your first mortgage has to be with an approved Victorville lender and complete an 8-hour in-person first-time homebuyer education course, among other requirements. The approval of this second loan through the city of Victorville that the council is accepting is a paid-in full loan and no debt with the reconveyance. There's a flyer on the website, on the city's Victorville website, or you can find me on Facebook, and you can see the flyer there as well. Thank you.
Move approval of consent items C1 through C5.
Motion by Mr. Cox, seconded by Mr. Kennedy. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries with Mr. Negretti being absent.
Now we move on to written communications. Item D1. Adjustments to the rates and fees for solid waste collection and household hazardous waste services. Madam Clerk, please read the recommendation.
That the City Council adopt Resolution Number 18-011 in order to accept the solid waste rate study, set June 5th, 2018 as the date for the public hearing for proposed adjustments to the rates and fees for solid waste collection and household hazardous waste services, and authorize staff to prepare and mail notices of the public hearing to property owners in accordance with Proposition 218.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff from council members?
Yes, I have a few questions. For this item D1, will staff be placing on the face of the envelope mailed to the record owner no smaller than a 16-point type words, official ballot enclosed per government code section 53753? The next question is, for this item and the upcoming items, why is the City Council already asked to adopt Resolution 18-011 and 18-013 if we anticipate due process and concerned voices of those whom this item will be affecting? We'll be able to speak not only today, but in future meetings. And finally, the third question is, does this type of adoption undermine the voices by displaying a guaranteed passage of the resolutions? Am I just realizing that this item will reappear on June 5th to consider parcel property owners' visits? And what does staff think about that?
Madam Mayor and members of the council, I believe I can answer what I counted as 3 questions there. Speaking specific to the questions about notice and certain types of font and certain types of language, I can't speak to exactly what Councilmember Gomez cited, but there are some very strict regulations established in how we are to notify and how and what language is to be included in all of the letters that actually serve as the ballots out to the residents. So what I can tell you is all of the regulations will be followed. So those ballots sent out will contain all of the requisite language prescribed by law. As to the resolutions, Ms. Gomez identified 2 resolutions ending in -11 and -13. -13 is the next agenda item, so we can speak to that later. But I think the answer for 11 is applicable to both. And in approving 11, it's not presupposing anything. In fact, this resolution is specifically accepting the rate study that was approved and actually sets in motion the opportunity for the ratepayer to have a say in the assessment process or the rate increase process. So effectively, this initiates ballots to go out to the resident by mailing those notices and officially starts the protest vote process.
No further questions.
Keith, it looks like and I know you did some work to go back and scrub these rate numbers, but it looks like on solid waste there wasn't a lot of scrubbing that could be done.
We certainly can, and we certainly have our consultant from NBS, Greg Klumpner, here as well that can give a presentation if you feel it's necessary. But yeah, your characterization, Councilmember Kennedy, is exactly correct. In both of these cases, since our January 29th meeting, staff did go back and really poked into the numbers and tried to scrub them. In the case of the solid waste, there wasn't a lot of room to move. And a lot of that has to do with the fundamental issue that we talked about last time, and that is that cash in this fund had been drawn down so significantly since 2008, which was the last time we actually addressed rates for solid waste. And the phenomenon that's occurred since that time effectively is while we've kept the rate fixed at the $20 level, all of the costs, the hauling costs, the disposal cost, and the admin costs all have gone up, and those inflators or cost inflations, if you will, have been borne by basically our idle cash. So the dramatic nature of this in year one compared to other years is largely because we have to fund cash needs to get through the fiscal year to maintain the existing level of service and also supplement some service for some of the illegal dumping program that we want to expand.
One last question, Madam Mayor. Staff, what is the date that this is to be completed and the public hearing scheduled for the public to further weigh in on it, although they get to vote on it?
So the process, as I understand it, and somebody can throw something at me or kick me when I'm wrong, is that tonight is basically the start. By adopting the resolution, you're actually accepting the rate study. We will then quickly roll into the process of finalizing the notices and putting them in the mail. And believing we stay on the schedule that we have, the public hearing would be June 5th, and by that time we would open the ballots and take account of the protests actually delivered to the city.
Okay. If there's no further questions, I move that resolution number 18.011, which starts the process, be adopted.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Cox, seconded by Mr. Kennedy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
As a point of order, the way we've been doing this is we ask for questions and then there's comments, and I've strictly
Please go
stuck to
ahead.
that.
Yes, if you have questions.
So if I have comments,
or have comments,
that's where
go
I'm
ahead.
going through now.
Go ahead.
So I'm sorry that we're not
Go ahead.
following that policy procedure, but I appreciate the moment to
Go
let
ahead.
me speak. Thank you so much. So for the comment section now, as with the next agenda item, this item is governed by California Code Section 53756 in terms of imposing fees or schedule changes. Today, Council will be pre-approving ordinance 18-011 to accept the solid waste costs related services dealing with solids. As the study showed that year one, it's $6.68 beginning July 1st of 2018. If approved and there are no more than 50 plus 1 in protest votes, the commercial parcel owners will see a 24.89 increase from their current rate, which is if the 50 plus 1 votes don't make it that far. Thank you.
Did everyone vote? Question.
Motion by Mr. Cox, seconded by Mr. Kennedy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries with Mr. Negretti being absent.
Item D2, adjustments to city sewer services, service rates. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
That the City Council adopt Resolution Number 18-013 in order to accept the sewer rate study, set June 5, 2018 as the date for the public hearing for proposed adjustments to city sewer service rates, and authorize city staff to prepare and mail notices of the public hearing in accordance with Proposition 218.
Thank you. Council members, any questions of staff?
I'm going to go ahead and proceed with my questions and my comments. My question is, will staff be placing on this ballot also, since it wasn't answered, but it's also applicable, the words official ballot enclosed?
If that's a requirement described in the regulation, it will include that. I don't know that regulation specifically, but if it is required, it will be on the ballot.
Because I was trying to compare what's happening with our solid waste and the trash and wastewater, and then also with the annexation with Canterbury. I don't know if they had the same rule specifications or they were just distinctly different, so I'm trying to make that connection.
They may or may not have the same rules, but they will follow the applicable guideline as prescribed in law.
Thank you. And then also, this agenda item is a sewer rate study, also known as the Schedule of Fees or Changes for Wastewater Treatment Plant in the City of Victorville. There's a recommendation before the City Council of an adoption to the Schedule of Fees and Charges for Property-Related Services for the next 5 years, not to exceed. The Council's adoption of the sewer rate study will trigger the current proposed sewer services to charge as early as July 1st, 2018. There are 25,802 single-family units that are on sewer system, while others are on the septic tank system. The proposed increase for the first year, July 1st, 2018, again, if there is no reaching of the threshold of 50 plus 1, will be $6.14. The single-family residential and commercial and others will increase slowly until 2023, and that's in the next 5 years. On a lighter note, for the power of the people who organize, there's an alternative option. If you happen to disagree with the charges being increased, there's Proposition 218, which has created rules, limitations on impositions of assessment, taxes, and fees. A protest may be submitted to the city clerk, Mrs. Charlene Robertson. On my far right, a written notice of your disagreement with the imposed fees is enough to begin the protest vote, but 50 plus 1 of the affected property owners are responsible for letting the clerk know in writing or in person of this. Today, this item is in written communication to the residents that it will be affected. The next proposed public hearing will be June 5th, 2018. All notices to property-related impositions of fees will be distributed on April 20th. The latest, if no majority protest is received from the approximate 30,000 units, the City of Victorville will consider introducing the first reading of the Sewer Rate Ordinance 18-013, and thereafter the affected parcel owners will see sewer services rates go up to allowable rates. And as a friendly reminder, if any of you would like to speak on any agendized item or non-agendized item, feel free to write or fill out a speaker card and bring it up to the front. Thank you.
Okay, I do not have any speaker cards at this time, so is there any additional discussion or
Yeah, just
questions?
question for staff on this. Chris, Keith, this was a fairly major effort. And I think a fair and good reflection on the study that was done. And when we asked you to work on the original results, you made some changes. Would you please highlight what those changes were?
Well, certainly yes, I will. Thank you, Councilmember Kennedy and members of the council. So in this particular study, and this is where I think we've taken the constructive input from the February 29 meeting and really spent a lot of time studying the numbers and verifying the numbers. And this is the one study where we had the most change to the benefit of the ratepayers, where we're actually able, through smoothing of costs and perhaps eliminating assumptions that were not exactly reliable, we were able to get the proposed rate increases down. And so we've got some comparables that I've outlined for you in the staff memo. But for example, in February 29, for the residential ratepayer, it was proposed then to have a rate of $38.09. We've got that number down to $33.03, so a pretty dramatic drop in a lot of, and you've seen that over the rest of the 5 years. But a lot of that is attributed to some cash. We studied the cash and found that there were some assumptions in the cash figures that we were using that were not accurate, so we certainly updated those to reflect some interfund borrowing that occurred back in February involving the wastewater treatment plant. That certainly had a major impact in the amount of cash needed in year one to fund not only operations and capital, but the operating reserve and the capital reserve. There's a pretty major one that we did remove, and that's an assumption about what the cost inflator is going to be for treatment at the VVW plant. Currently, we don't know what VVW's 5-year plan is going to look like for its rate increases, so we've actually removed that 7% inflator from the cost side of the plan, and effectively we will be required in subsequent years, if in fact VVW raises their rates or change their rates, to pass the same effect through to the ratepayer. That was a major one. We did look at utilities very closely. And we also we did some smoothing with respect to cash management. There has been cash policies recommended in previous studies, including the water study, where for operating reserves, it has been recommended and accepted by this council that we do an across-the-board 90-day operating cash reserve. And what we've done is looked at it from a 5-year perspective, and we've actually smoothed to achieve that target over the 5 years, as opposed to making sure that we have that cash on an annual basis in each of the 5 years to help smooth the rates. We did the same concept for capital as well, to where we looked at capital over 5 years and achieved the the capital reserve target over a period of 5 years, as opposed to trying to make sure we're individually in each of those years hitting that cash target.
Would it be accurate to say that some of our capital projects have been, shall we say, rescheduled, pushed a little bit out, not eliminated, but just scheduled a little later?
We've definitely scheduled some capital projects out. One that comes to mind that's a pretty spendy item is the cammering of the system, and as this council knows, we've spent the last 18 months cammering all 450 miles of the system, and we have a good characterization of the inside of the pipe, so we know what improvements need to be made now and what perhaps can be delayed. So we've actually taken that data and helped kind of define some of the capital spends going forward. We've also deferred some of the spend for new camera work to be done, since our data is fairly new. The previous plan actually showed camera surveying of the pipeline in years 1 and 2, and I believe certainly in year 1, I believe we actually pushed any new camera work out to year 3, relying on the data that we have is fairly new, and then ramping that back up. Altogether, we've, as staff and with the help of our consultants, we've actually put a considerable amount of time in it, and we believe this is as fine as it can get.
Are there any other?
If there are no other, I'll move approval of the item.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, seconded by Mr. Cox.
I think
Any
you
further
should, even
comment?
though we've had comments, I think you should ask a normal procedure as questions, motion second, then comments. I don't want to get out of that. I think you've already made the comments, but I want to ask again.
Is there any additional discussion by council members? If not, then let's have a motion.
Question.
Motion by Mr. Cox, seconded by Mr. Kennedy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries with Mr. Negretti being absent.
Now we move on to item D3, annexing the Canterbury tract into Victorville Citywide 2 Landscape Maintenance District Number 6. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
That the City Council adopt Resolution Number 18-015 to initiate proceedings for annexing the Canterbury tract into LMAD 6 and direct the preparation of an engineer's report.
Any questions of staff by by council members? Anyone?
Yes, I have a question. According to government...
Mayor, before our consultants leave, I'd just like to personally say thanks very much for your hard work. You did a great job on this.
Thank you. Okay.
So according to Government Section Code 53753E1 and D, it states that the ballots shall be unsealed and tabulated in public view at the conclusion of the hearing so as to permit all interested persons to meaningfully monitor the accuracy of the tabulation process. How will the city staff be proceeding with the assessment of the ballots on June 5th? Who will be tabulating, and where will the tabulation take place? I know in City Hall, but where specifically? The second question is, what process did the parcel owners in the Canterbury tract go through to annex, and is LAFCO involved?
So as to the city clerk question, that'll certainly be here in City Hall. Not sure exactly where the city clerk would actually like to do it, but certain
We've done it in the past, right outside council chambers in that hallway right there. We've set up tables.
So if I might, council, Madam Mayor, and to the rest of the council, this one's a little bit different in that this was initiated by the property owners in this particular tract that's located generally at St. Andrews and Green Tree Boulevard. And this started in part due to our Public Works Department responding to a major incident involving a tree, a big part of a pine tree that's situated in a landscaping median that's in the city's right-of-way, actually fell, just broke and collapsed and fell. Unfortunately, no people or vehicle or property was damaged in the process, but it was a pretty big tree that collapsed. And it caused us to, because it was in the right-of-way, or it appeared to be in the right-of-way, caused us to look into, hey, how did this happen in the first place? And certainly we were able to identify that the landscape areas of this tract weren't being properly maintained, and we soon come to identify that there was originally set up a property owners association that effectively became defunct sometime over the last 30 or 40 years. So because of our concern with respect to the potential damage if something like that occurred again due to lack of maintenance, we did contact property owners to try to get the association back in place. That didn't yield positively, which then resulted in the actual property owners, all but one in this tract, I believe, actually submitted a petition to the city asking that this be annexed into our citywide LMAD district. So with that petition that's been received, that effectively asked the city to initiate a process similar to the processes we just underwent for the rate increases, except this would be a property-based assessment. I believe it's to the order of $150. So effectively a mailer would go out similar to the mailers that went out for the last two items, and we would go to vote, and if the property owners agree to assess themselves, annex into that citywide LMAD and accept the fee, then effectively we could have a funding source then to go in and maintain that landscaping area so that there's potentially no further damage.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? I do not have any speaker card.
No further questions. I move the adoption of the staff recommendation and particularly Resolution 18-015.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Cox, seconded by Mr. Kennedy. Any further comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries with Mr. Negretti being absent.
Now we move on to item D4, award of construction contract for the 7th Street median desert landscape upgrade. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
That the City Council approve the award of construction contract to Inland Empire Landscape Incorporated in the not-to-exceed amount of $583,333.33 for the 7th Street Medium Desert Landscape Upgrade Project number CC 18-059.
Any questions from council members of staff at this time?
I have a question, Madam Mayor.
Go ahead.
Did we have a landscape architect draw the plans for this?
Yes, we did.
And those plans are out in the lobby where everyone can see them?
They're in City Hall. They could come to Public Works and view them if they would like to. We don't have the detailed plans out on a desk anywhere, but they could certainly request to see them.
If somebody wants to see the plans, they can make a request. Where? Front counter, Public Works?
Front counter, Public Works counter, either one.
Okay, thank you.
Doug, question. This is, correct my memory if I'm wrong, but this is one that we had out for an RFP and we pulled it back? Is that right?
Yeah, this one we rejected all bids because the bids were substantially higher than the money we had to pay for the project.
Out of lines.
Correct. So we rescoped the project, part of it being removing some walls, part of it being changing to more generic hardscape to make the bids, to lower the bids. So consultant put a lot of work in, staff put a lot of work in, and ultimately we got a bid that was below our project budget.
Trees that you have in the drawings, I was having a hard time. You printed it small enough that I had no hope of reading it. What kind of trees are those?
I don't remember.
Are we going to water them?
Absolutely. Yeah, there'll be drip irrigation out there. There'll be plant material out there, and part of the cash for grass is you have to have a certain percentage of landscaping back in there that's drought tolerant. So as you know, the watering out there before was not too efficient. So, and that didn't help the trees because they were essentially watered because the turf area was watered. So that didn't help the root systems much in that area. So these will be quite different.
A little bit off point, but we have other trees in public places in this city that are stressed and struggling, and because of the conservation cutback, are we going to let them go? Are we going to try and do anything about them?
We try and change the watering where we can. I know we have some on Hesperia Road that aren't doing too bad. We removed turf out in that area. So if they're drought tolerant, they're going to make it. If they're not, then we watch them and keep an eye on them. We'll do what we can to save them for sure if we're not going to replace them. Most of them are in the parks more than anything, I believe.
Thank you.
Councilmember Kennedy, I can blow it up here on my iPad, and the two tree types that appear to be used in the plan, one's a crepe myrtle, and the other one's a thornless Chilean mesquite.
Look like they're kind of a spreading low tree.
Low canopy, yeah.
Yeah, they're in our approved plant list for the city as drought tolerant as well.
Does staff know if the contractor will be subcontracting this project after the city awards it? And for the city attorney, how does this impact or facilitate any input from the city based on the California Code and Public Contract Code sections 4107 and 4109, which is part of our agenda? And the next question is, if you pay attention to page 214, there's an item there. It has the word added alternate. And I assume that it's not part of the $500,000 cost for the 7th Meridian, but because it said added cost, I want to make sure, is that an added cost above the $500,000 that it's going to cost the project, or that's just already included?
Sure. So two of the questions I could answer is they won't be using any subcontractors on this project. And the second one is the additive bid item we will not be doing because it is not within the budget. And it was essentially just some electrical and lighting. We will have conduit under there where it's something we could do eventually. Staff could put it in down the road at some point. So we'll have the measures in place to be able to achieve that without, having to go through a lot of effort to dig anything up.
And ask your question to me, all of the bidding was done in full compliance with both the Public Contracts Code and the city's municipal code.
Yeah, there was a couple of exceptions if there was a subcontractor, but you said there is no subcontractor. But had there been, then I guess the contract would have been in effect. So thank you for the response.
No further questions? Then I
don't have any speaker cards, so.
Yes, I move to approve the construction contract for the 7th Street Median Desert Landscape upgrade to Inland Empire Landscaping under project CC 18-059.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Cox, seconded by Mayor Garcia.
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
Are there any shade trees that are part of our approved trees, or are those reserved for parks only?
I believe those will be more in the park areas. We're looking in the right of way to get trees that are more or less not root intrusive and not something extremely large. So
in this area, no shade trees?
Yeah, not specifically.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I had. I should ask it under the question, but it was a comment that people are asking about shade trees in the city. And so thank you for clarifying.
Anyone else?
Motion by Mr. Cox, seconded by Mayor Garcia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries with Mr. Negretti being absent.
Item D5, build up of the approved 5 command vehicles for the city fire department. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
That the City Council approve Resolution Number 18-020, amending the annual budget for fiscal year 2017-2018 and awarding West Coast Lights and Sirens the buildup of the council approved 5 2018 Ford Interceptor utility vehicles in the amount of $92,660.25.
Any questions of staff by council members?
Yes. So my question for this item is, in the year that we had the contract with the county, had the city of Victorville had a contract with the county. It was very few. I think it was only one vehicle purchased throughout the entire life of that contract, and then a grant from the firefighters that they were able to purchase, and then we've used reserves. And I'm just aghast to look at how many vehicles we've already purchased, and we're going to purchase between 8 and probably a little bit more. So I just want to know, what's the difference between then and now besides a city-run department?
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. To answer that question, as we went through the analysis prepared by both Citygate as well as our internal consultant, we were able to identify specific cost savings, and in both particular analysis, we didn't ignore the fact that these purchases would be needed regardless of if we move forward with the county or we went city fire. In this particular case, for these 5 vehicles, these are vehicles that would not be provided under the scope of a county contract because those command staff would be shared. In the case of the city fire, these are our internal command staff that would require these vehicles, so the immediate need to purchase those vehicles is urgent up front. Over the next 4 years, you mentioned there's an additional, we're looking at an additional 4 larger vehicles, 2 Type 1 engines and a ladder truck. Those engines would be paced out over the next 2 to 3 years as far as their purchase, and quite frankly, we'd be able to do those as part of the plan based on just salary savings or cost savings when you compare the cost of what we're going to be paying for city fire personnel versus county fire personnel. So once we do that analysis, we were able to absorb those costs over the next 3 years. Hope that answers your question.
And the other question that I have, I've been noticing that we're consistently will spend and approve, and then we modify, and we do the same thing. I didn't see that during my first part of the year, but towards the latter, I'm starting to see modifications and a lot of expenditures come with saying that we don't have enough money, so we have to do a tax increase for public safety. So I'm wondering, how do you manage to be able to allow us to approve such budget when we're asking for a tax increase and it's not there? Where do you withdraw these monies? Where are we getting the money from?
I'm not aware of any ask for a tax increase for public safety associated with the transition to city fire, but what I can say is we identified budget through the mid-year process to make these initial purchases. So we discovered that there were enough cost savings through just a regular review of our budgeted expenditures through December to be able to afford these purchases up front. As far as modifications, we are not making any modifications to an original action taken by the council. This typically, when you purchase fire or police vehicles, for that matter, you first purchase. The first action is to purchase the base vehicle, and then you would add the necessary modifications to turn it into a service vehicle at some point. And in this particular case, we purchased the 5 vehicles with an action in February that actually buys the base Ford Explorer Interceptors, and then the modifications are the lights, the radios, all of the equipment that would be needed to be installed after the fact. And so that's what you're approving. That's what's before you tonight.
Thank you. No further questions.
I do not have, I'm sorry. Anyone else?
I'll make motion that we approve resolution 18-020, City Council of the City of Victorville amending the annual budget for fiscal year 2017-2018, approving an additional appropriation of general funds for increasing the city fire department budget for the communication buildup of the 5 command vehicles.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, seconded by Mr. Cox. Any further comment?
Yeah, for the attorney, before I cast my vote on this one, I like a legal opinion. I understand how now that we have a budget, I heard. I wasn't aware of what we were getting our monies, and we have enough reserves. So before I cast my vote, that's what I'm requesting of you.
I'm not sure I understand the question. Typically, the city adopts a budget, and throughout the year, it'll make modifications to that budget as necessary. That's why these items come before the council. Does that answer your question?
So there's enough cost savings for these 5 trucks, right?
That was the report of the assistant city manager, yes.
Thank you.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy.
Questions?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Other questions?
Call for the question, Madam Mayor.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, second by Mr. Cox. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries with Mr. Negretti being absent.
Item D6, standard lease agreement for Building 685B at Southern California Logistics Airport. Madam Clerk, please read the recommendation.
That the Board of Directors of the Southern California Logistics Airport Authority approve entering into the standard lease agreement by and between SCLAA and First Class Air Support Incorporated for Building 685B and authorize the interim deputy city manager to execute said agreement.
Thank you. Any questions of staff by city council members?
Just one. Is it safe to assume that this lease, like all our other leases, has a provision that it cannot be assigned?
That is typically, in all of our documents, it can be assigned only with our consent, which we put in all documents.
Any other questions? None?
Mayor, if I might, to get an opportunity to speak.
Yes.
We've got a new member to our SCLA family, and that is First Class Air Service. So Mr. Mike Rivera is here. I'd like to introduce him to you. Mike's a lifelong Victorville resident who's now working for First Class. First Class is coming into Southern California. Have never been here before, so the company's grown. This will be the 4th location. I'd like to introduce you to him and give him a chance to say a little bit about the company.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members. My name is Michael Rivera. I've been a resident of the Victor Valley for the past 12 years. I'm a United States Marine veteran. I served 5 years down at Camp Pendleton and deployed during Operation Iraqi Freedom. And prior to that, I've also lived out in Palmdale, Lancaster, so I've always been a resident of the high desert. Very excited about this new opportunity with First Class Air Support. I've been in aviation my whole entire life. That's where I went to when I was in the Marine Corps. I was an aviation mechanic. And I'm looking forward to growing this part of our operation and hiring a huge team to actually bring in business and support the city.
Well, welcome and thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. 20 employees, right?
That's correct. That's the projected.
Just trying to make sure I have everything lined up. I wasn't sure. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Madam Mayor and members of the council, just to be maybe a little bit more specific to answer Councilmember Kennedy's question as to the assignment language, Section 28 is our standard section that deals with that. It's actually on page 289 of the agenda for you and also for the benefit of the public in case they're able to flip through.
Is that all?
No more questions?
Is that all you have?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. I don't have any speaker cards, so if there's no other discussion, then we have a motion.
I move that we approve staff recommendation for the standard lease agreement for Building 685B by and between Southern California Logistics Airport Authority and First Class Air Support, Inc.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Cox, seconded by Mayor Garcia. Any further comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries with Mr. Negretti being absent.
Item D7. Item D7, I do not have any speaker cards. I don't know if there's any discussion, but this has been requested to be continued. I don't have a date for continuation. Is that in agreement with council members?
Which item?
D7.
The request for the continuance is from you and Councilmember Kennedy, so let's leave it up to one of you or both to determine when that should be.
Both of us are pretty swamped at the moment. If we
Okay.
could move it to May, I'd really appreciate
I
it.
have no problem. When it's done, as I indicated before, I receive calls about cities concerned about paying its bills. No, we're not. You're going to lay off employees? No, we're not. What in the world are you talking about? And then I was directed to the right communications, and even though the headline didn't match the story wasn't bad. It was a little confusing because I don't think the general public knows what the going concern, I don't think they, in auditing terms, what it means, and it raised concerns. And so if we were going to be transparent and open and explain what we do, I felt it was necessary that the two members of our auditing team explain to the public exactly what a going concern is and what the actual financial condition of the city is. And that was my request. Thank you very much for agreeing to do it. I know that both of you are involved in this is the tax season. If it needs to be continued, whatever your continuance date is, I fully concur with, but it needs to be done, in my opinion, if the council agrees.
Yeah, and it will be done, so whatever date we choose later in May?
First May.
Oh, aren't you going to be gone or something after that? First meeting in May, I don't know what date
It'd be
that
good to
is.
have a motion then to continue this item to May 1st, if that's okay.
So moved.
Well, second.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, seconded by Mayor Garcia. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries with Mr. Negretti being absent.
Item D8. Yes, I'm
This
sorry.
is an item that was requested by Mr. Negretti. He's had family issues interfere tonight. Could we continue it to the next meeting when he'll be here?
We certainly can. I do have one card, though. How do you pronounce his name?
Joe Fataki.
Jackie?
Just Joe, he knows who he
Joe.
is.
Okay, I do have one card if he wants to come up and speak.
Okay, my understanding of this, you want to increase the tax, like the fire tax, police tax, safety tax. It was voted down and the people said no. This doesn't mean that you bring it back again, okay? Enough is enough. You have victimized all of us. This is one of the worst places to live in California. It's the most dangerous place to live in California. You're out of touch with reality. Have you gone down the streets lately? It's just appalling. You can't even control your own office, the harassment that goes on between your members. And if you can't even control your own office or your own staff, you have no business running a city. Okay? And I don't understand why these other colleagues let it continue. I've seen it, especially from you, Gloria. Okay? It's not very nice. It's wrong. Okay? And you really need to deal with this, homeless or not the homeless. You need to separate the homeless that need help, hand up. It's the druggies that are the problem. And these streets are lined with druggies. Every gas station you go to, shopping center, it's out of control. You don't know what you're doing. You have no idea what you're doing. And today I'm going to ask you and Jim to step down with grace and style. And if you don't step down, okay, we'll get a petition, and we need about 4,500 signatures, I guess. And I have no problem getting that because I know a heck of a lot of people that don't want you. This has to stop. Okay? You don't know what you're doing. There's other cities that will help you make your city better. But you ignore it. The new police chief here, it's unfair to him, he's new, but I've been complaining about places for 7-8 years. Crack people selling right out in the open, and nothing's done. And I've been in your office many times complaining and actually been thrown out of your office. And so I guess you're supporting the druggies and the bad people in Victorville. This is a total disgrace.
You have
so
30
I'm asking you
seconds.
today to step down with grace and style, both of you, or we'll just sign a petition and get you out. Fair enough?
It's fair enough, sir. Very fair. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate your comments. You're a wonderful person. Have a nice evening. Okay, we're back on this item again. So it will be continued. Shall we leave it up to Councilmember Negrete to decide when he wants to bring it back? Or
It's his item.
Maybe appropriate to, if you want, then continue it at least to the next meeting so that he can then decide how he wants to proceed. So a
very well.
motion.
Okay, we will continue it to the next meeting.
That'd be good to have a motion on that.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, seconded by Mayor Garcia. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
So I'm going to go ahead and give my comments here as well. The City Council has a fiduciary duty to be stewards of the capital assets and finances of the City of Victorville. So far, it's ignored the costs and has undermined the will of the people. When Measure K had the backing of Councilmember Kennedy, Councilmember Negrete, Mayor Garcia, and Mayor Pro Tem Cox, another tax imposition just after 4 months on the same failed measure ignores the vote of the electorate in Victorville. Measure K failed, not receiving 2/3 of the electorate's vote. Victorville residents aren't being spared the burden of an increase in sales tax, despite all of the other taxes that have come to fruition from other government entities.
Well, this item was agendized by Councilmember Negrete. I'm not in favor of it at all whatsoever myself. I don't speak or answer for any other council members. Therefore, I'm just giving Mr. Negrete an opportunity to see what it is that he would like to bring up, and that's all there is to it. Anything else from any other?
Well, I don't have any comment because we haven't discussed it.
No,
We have a council member requested we discuss it. I would hope that people who are for or against it would voice their opinion after it's discussed. They have no idea how I'm going to vote, or none of the members have expressed an opinion on how they're going to vote. So let's wait, find out what Mr. Negrete wants to submit to the council, and then everybody will make a decision at that point.
Thank you, but I don't like for anyone to accuse me of approving something that I'm not even discussing yet.
Nobody accused you. It was for Measure K. All 4 of you were in for that, and I even was going to be brought in, and I said no. So you're not being accused. It's for Measure K.
I was.
The interesting thing about that is everybody I've ever known who ran for office, including me, would have been absolutely thrilled to get 62% of the voters
yeah.
to say yes. For anybody to look at that vote count and call it a no vote, I don't know what he's talking about. Doesn't make any sense. It was a very positive, extremely positive. I can't remember the last president that was elected with 62%. That's not the issue. The issue is Mr. Negrete would like to talk about it again, and he has a right to request that discussion, and I'm willing to listen.
That's it.
Nobody asked you to stand up, sir?
No, I said the people said no. But I don't want it.
Okay, we will continue.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, seconded by Mayor Garcia. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries with Mr. Negrete being absent.
Now we move on to public comments. And I do have, read the statement first, Madam Clerk. Public statement.
This is the time and place for the general public to address the City Council on any item listed or not listed on the agenda, per Government Code Section 54954.3. State law prohibits the Council from addressing any issue not previously included on the agenda. The Council may receive testimony and set the matter to a subsequent meeting. Comments are to be limited to 3 minutes per individual or less, as deemed necessary by the Mayor, depending upon the number of individuals desiring to speak. All communications are to be addressed directly to the Council, not the members of the audience. This is a professional business meeting, and courtesy and decorum are expected. Please refrain from any debate between audience and speaker, making loud noises, or engaging in any activity which might be disruptive to the decorum of the meeting. Any person or group who interferes with the conduct of the City Council meeting by willfully interrupting and/or disrupting the meeting is subject to removal. A peace officer may be requested to assist with removal should any person or group fail to comply with an order of removal by the Council. Any person or group who resists removal by a peace officer is subject to arrest and prosecution pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957.9, Penal Code Section 503.
Thank you. The first card that I have is Yvonne Moshek.
Good evening, Mayor, Council Member. I'm here to ask you a couple of things. First, I want to talk about our library. It's sad. I come here every year and talk to you about the library that needs to be renovated, moved. The books need to be cleaned. New books, it's just in bad shape. And the second thing I want to talk to you about is the homeless population. I don't want you, this council, to bring the people from the city of Irvine. I understand they're asking different cities to pay them to relocate their homeless population. I don't want you to do that to Victorville. We have enough here, and I don't think we want any more people up here panhandling, living in the desert, in tents, over by the closed up buildings. We have enough of that. And you always ask for our phone numbers. I'd like to get a call back from one of you to find out what you propose to do about this.
We don't normally engage because if public knew this was going to be on the agenda, there may be pros and cons. I will call you back because what you just said is totally wrong. Somebody gave you some really bad information. I will call you.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Robert Harriman.
Good evening, Council. A couple things. After the recent rain, I noticed that the cold joint in the asphalt on Bear Valley and Amethyst is failing. It was just done this year by, I believe, All American Asphalt. I think they should be called to come fix it, or they need to inspect what's going wrong already. The cold joint is separating, and there were already some pieces that had come out over the rain. Secondly, in respect to the homeless, something's got to be done about the homeless. It's not an easy task. We all know that, okay? I think the woman before me got that a little wrong. What I read was this Orange County wanted to buy some property in Victorville, approximately 10 acres, and relocate the homeless from Orange County to Victorville. Now, that might just be hearsay, but there was an article written in it about it in an Orange County newspaper. And it was not the Orange County Register. So we're all against that for sure. Thirdly, the Measure K. I don't know where this guy's coming from, okay? 62% of the vote. We still need to get this passed, okay? That's tied to the homeless. It's tied to the homeless lighting fires in the field. And he complains that nobody's taking care of anything, but he doesn't want to increase our law enforcement or our fire department. How do I know that? Because he doesn't believe in Measure K. So I don't quite know. That seems awfully hypocritical to me. Okay? Now, I'll say it again. My analogy. I see people eat a hamburger and French fries and leave their change at the little bowl at the cash register. That's more than 0.5%. That'll pay for Measure K. So anybody who's leading everybody on to think that this is some major tax that's going to dent everybody's wallet is a fool. On top of the fact that I'm going to guess 40% of that money, 30%, is going to come from people traveling through Victorville. It's not all going to come directly from the taxpayers here in Victorville. All right, and lastly, I'm going to ask for the resignation of Mrs. Gomez.
Have 30 seconds.
I'm getting a little tired of the embarrassment that we have to go through while reading the newspaper because she can't conduct herself in a professional-like manner. So I ask for your immediate resignation. Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Now I have Maggie Martin.
Good evening, Your Honor, Counsel. I don't think I could say what I'm going to say any better than the gentleman behind me, but first I'll start off with, yes, the only one I would like to see resign from this council is Ms. Gomez. Set that aside. I think all of you are keenly aware that we do have a homeless situation here. It's rampant. And the gentleman made some fine points, but here's the thing that I didn't hear. I heard him laying this at your feet as if you, meaning the council, were the cause of this rat infestation we have up here. And he's complaining about the problem, and he's blaming the police, and he's blaming you, but I don't hear anybody talking about what's the solution. So my suggestion to that gentleman, and or anyone else, notwithstanding Measure K, which I would support that coming around again, is get together with the powers that be. If you think you know how to fix this city, then contact the council, contact the police department, but don't come up here and bash the council as if they were the reason why we have the problems that we do. And it's unrealistic to expect, as much as I would like it, a police officer on every block, at every gas station. He's accurate. He's totally accurate about that. Tent encampments and all this. But it's just part of a bigger problem, but it wasn't created by anyone in these chambers. And I would definitely not want anyone other than Ms. Gomez to resign from this council. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was the last card that I had. So now we will go into a report from our city manager.
Yes, Madam Mayor and the rest of the council. Brandon has some pictures I'd like to share with you, speaking to an item involving the basketball court resurfacing project that you approved a few meetings ago. The pictures that I saw today are pretty impressive as to the impact of what you guys recently approved. A little bit ahead of schedule because the contractor got freed up. This is a before and after of the resurfacing of the basketball court at Mesa Linda Park, and that was completed this last Friday. And this is effectively what they're going to look like at the rest of the basketball courts. Sunset Ridge is believed to be scheduled for next week, and then we believe the rest of them will be complete by April 24th, the rest of them being Brentwood, Center Street, Old Victor School, Doris Davies, Evadale, and Grady Trammell. So thank you for that support in authorizing staff to proceed with this work. It's certainly making a meaningful impact to the community and certainly those that use our park system. April 24th, we have a scheduled Victorville Community Cleanup Day. There's approximately 600 volunteers already signed up, and we have 18 sponsors for this program. The cleanup actually occurs at various sites throughout Victorville and runs from 8 a.m. to noon on April 14th. March 9th, for the period of March 19th through April 16th, we're actually conducting a survey, and we're asking for community feedback as to what those that are interested in our skateboard project want to see at the skateboard park. So we have surveys set up at victorvilleca.gov. We also have paper surveys available here at City Hall. And as of today, we have 430 online surveys completed and 150 paper surveys completed. We're actually taking that input as we're currently in the design process for the skateboard park, which will be at Pebble Beach. And we're actually taking that feedback that we're getting and including that as part of the design considerations.
Thank you. Now we have discussion and possible action regarding items for the upcoming City Council agenda. I will start with Mr. Gomez. Did you have something?
I'm gonna go last. I'm gathering my thoughts here. I lost my
I'm starting
place.
with you.
Like I
Otherwise,
said, I will start later. I'm looking for my place. Unless you want to wait for me, that's not a problem.
Well, you're always reading. I don't know
It,
what.
it regardless, I'm going to speak whether you want to or not. You want me to do it now? Just
I'll wait.
okay.
I'll wait. I'll wait.
Okay, so I found my place. So for the upcoming City Council agenda meetings, I would like to see a rating performance evaluation criteria for the city manager to be able to justify pay and competence. So that's my motion.
Is there a second? There being no second, the motion dies.
And the second thing, the same thing would be, the city of Victorville, in my opinion, has never, I don't see any paperwork or any evaluation. We never justify how deep people perform, no rating, no number. And to me, it's very important to be able to show why there's rate increases and how the competence is. So the same question now is go for a rating performance evaluation criteria for the city attorney to justify work performance, communication, and ethics. I've never seen that. That's just hopefully in the future, not probably during this council, but that's my motion.
Is there a second? There being no second, the motion dies.
Madam Mayor, I have a couple of things.
Yes, go ahead.
I'd like to agendize for the next meeting our consideration of a contract for city manager with Mr. Metzler. It's my motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, seconded by Mr. Cox. All those in favor?
Aye.
I would like to see due diligence in that regard, not just immediately put that, so I'm going to have to deny that.
It's just being agendized for the next meeting.
I know, and so I gave my response.
While we're at it, I would also like to agendize a review and possible action regarding our city attorney's contract at the next meeting.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, second by Mayor Garcia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion.
Thirdly, I'd like to ask the mayor to designate 2 council members, since it has to be limited to 2, to negotiate the terms of these contracts with the city manager and the city attorney.
Second.
So in other words, you're asking for an ad hoc committee to evaluate the income or the money raises. I think that should be an open session rather than an ad hoc committee.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, seconded by Mayor Garcia. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries with Ms. Gomez voting no and Mr. Negretti being absent.
Your motion was for her to designate 2 people, so
At the present time, or can she do that and inform
She
the
could-
rest of the council?
she could do that right now and involve the rest of the council.
I designate,
I don't think she can do that because isn't it have to be agendized for that to occur? And this is not an agendized item. We are actually on what we would like to see next time.
Well,
And
actually,
so-
you're right. I think you are correct. I think she can just do the designation per your motion. Your motion was allowing her to designate those people.
very good. Did you have something, Jim?
Yes, I did.
Good.
I wasn't exactly sure of the comment in regard to employees, but the personnel rules provide that employees have an evaluation once a year. Those are personnel matters and they're confidential. Evaluations are done by the supervisor and then the department heads. In some instances are reviewed by the manager. The manager does the evaluation of the department heads. That goes into their personal file. That is a confidential matter, which is not available even to the city council, let alone the public. And the only evaluation that we get involved in as a city council is the city manager and the city attorney. And the discussion of Mr. Metzler in regard to a contract. What is it I would think is included in that would be all of our comments, which in fact is an evaluation. We can adopt a formal, out of the textbook, how you evaluate, or you can do it individually with individual comments being made, and you can have that evaluation, since it's a personal matter, by the City Council. The ad hoc committee that's going to be named will take a look at contracts and will make a recommendation. They will not be setting the salary, and that's a matter that will be discussed very publicly, and it requires a vote of the whole council to do that. I just want to clarify those items in case it wasn't clear.
I'd like to also clarify, because the last time that we did speak about potentially increasing, we didn't do it in open session, so I made sure this time we were. So that's my clarification why we're going to do it open and no longer in a closed session item or in an ad hoc committee, which was never assigned. So that's my clarification for understanding what you just spoke about.
All I have, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Okay. I would like to, at our next meeting, I would like to agendize that, and what I am requesting is for finance to actually provide, for the sake of transparency, I would like for our financial department to provide me with an itemized expense account of all council members as of January of 2017 through the present. I would like to see how much money council members are actually spending, because this is taxpayers' money, and we need to be transparent. And I would like to bring it before the public. I would like to bring it before the taxpayers so that they can see how we abuse or not abuse their money. And that's my motion.
I will second that, because several months ago I asked that this be agendized as a part of the approval to when we pay bills every month, that we automatically list each council member separately and what the expenses are. It didn't fly, it wasn't discussed, and
That's
I
why I'm
still think it's a
bringing it
good
up,
idea.
yeah.
Okay, that's why I'm seconding.
What's very interesting is that you guys are either blind or want to keep bringing the same things up, because it wasn't even a month ago that we had right before us the very same thing that you're asking again. So I would also request that we bring the same items that are going to be put again forth, so that the community can see that these are items that are just being brought up again and again for
Okay.
whatever reason. So we
Okay,
have that already.
you're-
I'm sorry, don't
No,
interrupt me.
You're out of order,
Okay?
because
No,
it was
you are out of order.
Oh my.
You
Oh
are.
my. Children, come on.
Meeting adjourned.